to make sure they're safe and clean and quality, but also that where they need to be replaced, they're rebuilt and replaced. And the President has charged me with doing that, and we are focused on doing that.
Thank you, Secretary. And I hope that the next photos that you receive and the next photos that I receive and reports that I receive are of improved conditions and of new barracks and of quality of life improvements, because this has gone on for far too long. Let me give you another example. At Holloman Air Force Base, the Child Development Centers on base faced critical staffing issues for many years, and just recently gave military families, our airmen and women, just 9 days to find new child care providers. One parent said she felt she had no choice but to resign from her job as a physician assistant when her son lost his spot in on-base care. And one patient, describing his experience seeking health care at Cannon Air Force Base, said, "Good luck. If you need specialized care, referrals take 6 months or more, and regular appointments are booking a month out." And so spending $1 billion a day on a war overseas while leaving our service members out to dry is not America first. It's a betrayal. Secretary Hegseth, I voted for $1 trillion for the defense budget in committee last year, and I've yet to see the results come home. Service members back home have said nothing about progress or improvements underway. Within 30 days, Secretary, would you commit to sending me a detailed list of every dollar that is going to improve the quality of life at bases in my district?
We will get you whatever we can, but that doesn't meet with what we've seen, which is running as fast as this department ever has on quality of life issues, because I've been in their shoes. I've seen those barracks, and I've seen them recently. And it may not have happened under this administration, but this administration is going to fix it. And ultimately, this budget reflects that kind of priority across the board.
Well, thank you, Secretary. And I will just suggest that it needs to run faster. It needs to run at the speed of light. It needs to cross time travel. I don't care what it takes, but it's gone on for far too long. And so I appreciate your attention to this issue, but we have got to get it done, and we cannot be here again next year discussing the improvements that haven't been done despite what's in the budget today. And so let me be clear that these issues have persisted for years under both administrations on both sides of the aisle. The department has received billions of taxpayer dollars as this committee has continued to work in a bipartisan fashion to support our troops and their families. And at a time when cost of living is the top issue for families, including those who serve, the department is in the position to address these costs of housing, child care, groceries, and other needs. I hope the department chooses to do that. Thank you, Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Gooden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Secretary, for being here and the work you're doing. Over the past decade, Bitcoin has evolved from a fringe asset into a matter of national security. Iran has demanded Bitcoin as a toll for transit through the Strait of Hormuz. North Korean cyber actors have leveraged it in ransomware campaigns, and China is believed to be stockpiling substantial holdings as part of a strategic reserve. Just last week, Indo-PACOM Commander Admiral Paparo stated that Bitcoin has direct implications for power projection, and he noted that Indo-PACOM is operating a node on the Bitcoin network in furtherance of that mission. Secretary, do you share the opinion that Bitcoin is a tool to project power, and are there any department-wide initiatives to ensure the U.S. secures a strategic advantage in Bitcoin and combats China's digital authoritarianism?
I guess my short answer would be yes and yes. Long an enthusiast of Bitcoin and crypto potential, and a lot of the things we're doing enabling it or defeating it are classified efforts that are ongoing inside our department, which do provide us a lot of leverage in a lot of different scenarios.
I appreciate that, and I share your views. I thank you for that. I also wanted an update with our operations in Qatar. How are those going since the Iran war, and how have Qatar been as a partner to work with over these last few months?
I think it's fair to say that the Gulf states, to include Qatar, have done a nice job integrating on air defenses specifically, and then providing access basing and overflight. Qatar being one of them, UAE, Saudi, Kuwait, Bahrain. They've lived the threat of Iran. There's some complicated aspects with Qatar, but ultimately they've provided support to what we need in the theater.
I appreciate that. I also appreciate the job that our men and women are doing there at that base. I realize they're going through a lot. We really appreciate the work you do, and I'll yield back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair, now we recognize the gentlelady from New Hampshire, Ms. Goodlander.
I want to thank our witnesses for being here today, and I want to begin by getting right to it, since my time is limited, on this $1.5 trillion budget request. Mr. Hegseth, you testified last year and you testified again today that you will be accountable for every American taxpayer dollar that comes to the department, where it goes and why. That's really important since, as it's been pointed out, the department has failed 8 audits. The department remains on GAO's high-risk list. The Inspector General just last year alone identified billions of dollars that could have been put to better use, and in questioned costs, that is spending that raised red flags. So this is a crisis right now in accountability of where the dollars of the American taxpayers who are in the middle of a cost crisis, where this money is going. I want to ask about your war in Iran. And Mr. Hurst, you testified earlier today that $25 billion has been spent to date. I just want to clarify that that is money, that taxpayer dollars that have been spent already in this war.
$25 reflects the costs of the war, right? So we've already spent the dollars on munitions and things like that. So we're factoring in cost of munitions expended into that total.
So how much of that has gone towards munitions? Does that include the munitions that have been spent to date?
Yeah, that reflects the munitions that have been spent to date and other operational costs.
Can you give us a breakdown of what those costs are?
We'll work to get you guys a product that has a detailed breakdown of those costs.
Yeah, my concern here is, Mr. Hegseth, you've testified repeatedly that you're going to be accountable for each and every American taxpayer dollar that you spend, that you're going to be accountable for the rationale. Here we are 60 days in to your war of choice in Iran, and you can't give us an answer on a breakdown of the basic breakdown of American taxpayer dollars that have been spent in your war of choice? That's a question for Mr. Hurst. You, right now, as you sit here now, you
We're
cannot.
happy to give you a breakdown. We'll provide you a product after this hearing.
Well, I would love for you to give us this breakdown now and explain to us, was this unbudgeted costs, or was this something the department planned for in advance, since you were appropriated $1 trillion last year?
The department deals with contingency operations all the time within its normal budget.
So this was not budgeted for. My point here is, you know, and General Kane, you've testified to this. We all understand, for you to do your jobs, you need Congress to pass budgets. For us to do our jobs, we need you to give us the details and to be accountable to American taxpayers. And so I got to say, it's an extraordinary dereliction that as you sit here, you cannot account for billions of dollars that have already been spent.
You're
in this
briefed
war.
on munitions every week. You and your entire staff have every,
asking
just so
you-
the American public know, it's not
Mr.
as if you
Hegseth,
don't have
you-
munitions levels.
Mr.
You do
Hegseth.
from us every single week, so you know
Hegseth,
exactly the numbers you're
Mr.
talking
Hegseth,
about.
you have testified that American taxpayers need to know where their dollars are going. And as you sit here today, you can't provide us with a basic answer to the most simple question that you should be able to answer to each and every American
You're asking
taxpayer.
a question to an answer with an answer you already have.
No, I'm asking you for a breakdown where you said you will be accountable for every taxpayer dollar. You cannot tell us where any of the $25 billion in taxpayer funds that have gone to fund your war of choice in Iran. And I look forward to getting details from our witnesses after this hearing, because the American taxpayers need to know. Mr. Hegseth, can I ask you, do you know what the average cost of a gallon of gas was in this country on February 28th?
Well, it depends on where you live. If you live in California, it's $8.
$2.83. Do you know what the average cost of a gallon of gas is today?
Much higher in California.
$4.23. I gotta say, Mr. Hegseth, you said you've got a crack economic team that's looking at the impacts of this war on the American taxpayer, and you can't answer this basic question. That should shock the conscience of every American. General Kane, I want to come back to something, a really important principle, and my time is limited. You testified to an important and bedrock principle of American law, that our service members follow lawful orders and lawful orders only. Is that right? Do you agree with the statement, quote, "The military won't follow unlawful orders"?
I do.
Mr. Hegseth, do you agree with that statement?
I do, but understand what you're insinuating at a partisan point.
I'm not. I'm actually quoting you directly, Mr. Hegseth, from April 12th, 2016. And I appreciate that on the record, you've clarified this important principle of American
Gentlelady's
law.
time's expired. Chair, and I recognize the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Harrigan.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Secretary and Chairman Kane. It's always a pleasure to have you here. I'm going to fall in line with the chairman's earlier statements that we can do whatever we want with our 5 minutes, and I'm going to give you all a break from the conflict here, and I'm going to tell you a story, and it's a story that's important to me. And I'm going to start with a proposed citation. And